Hi everyone, I'm Ken from Crypto Trading KS. If you're new, welcome, and welcome back to our regular community. Twice a day, 7 days a week, I share my experience as a full-time crypto trader to assist you to be more of a financial blessing to yourself and those you love. Everything I do for you is free. This is a special series on the KS model. Many people have asked me, why will Bitcoin prices continue to climb? This is part one in addressing that. There's just a couple of very nice comments from our beautiful community about how they've found the KS model. But basically the KS model just helps us to understand where Bitcoin is in its cycle. It's kind of a roadmap. Let's get into it. I'd like to take you through the KS model. KS model is a Bitcoin technical trading model based on institutional price psychology. This is actually a live chart of Bitcoin's price. I would like to take you through these 5 points. The halvings are in blue lines here. Each halving has a bull, a bear, and a consolidation phase. Each halving has a peak and a low. The next cycle is always above the previous. What this means, this cycle is below this cycle, this one will be below that one. I'll just take you into the dynamics of highs and lows and just explain the exponential asset class nature of Bitcoin. To start this analysis, point one, we just go from the actual halving. So the 2012 peak, it's not referring to the year, it's just referring to the actual halving cycle. So the 2012 halving cycle peak was this green line here running along at $1,163. After the rocket hit the moon and the moon said, "Good on you, rocket, go back to Earth and reprogram for the next launch," what happens is that it goes down in value, capitulates, and that hammers in the low. The 2012 halving cycle low was $152. Now I want you to think, say that you had been with this channel and we had invested $10,000 each at that capitulation event, because that's exactly what we would be doing. Let's go to the next cycle, the 2016 cycle. The 2016 cycle just runs all the way to the next halving, to the 2020 cycle. The 2016 halving cycle peak was $19,666. It's this green line running along here. You can see the price there. When the rocket was rebuilt and took off, it hit the moon says, "Well done, rocket, go back to Earth, get reprogrammed so you can do the next rocket launch." It went down and capitulated at 3,122, which was the 2016 halving cycle low. Now the fascinating thing here is if you had bought $10,000 worth at this capitulation and just managed to sell it at 19,666, not here, but over in this current cycle, the 2020 cycle, the $10,000 would have increased to 1.29 million. That's a fairly good gain over not many years, from 2015 to say anywhere in 2020, 2021. It's a very good return. It would be hard to get that sort of appreciation out of about just any other investment. That's why I say each particular section of the halving has its own unique benefits. And when you get really confident, we will stay together through all of them, not just the bull market, the bear market, and consolidation. There's unparalleled opportunities. You notice that from point one, we hammered in that high, we came down to the low, so we hammered in that high here, we came down to the low after capitulation of 152, we went up through passing the high. This is an important point. When we pass that high, the price doesn't come back and violate that green line. It goes up to a new green line, it goes down to another red line. So the green line that it goes up to, 19,666, it came down to the low of 31.22, which was above the previous high of 11.63. That's why so many times I've said we are so safe, because this property of Bitcoin is coded into its monetary function. It's really important to know that. When people say Bitcoin is going to zero, going to $5,000, I really laugh. Because unless we get a black swan event, that's not going to happen. And even if we do, we've had many black swan events happening here. These lightning bolts are all black swan events. Some repair within days, weeks, others take months, but they always repair. And there's nothing we can do to avoid them, so we just hang on if we get one of those. But the likelihood at the moment is not very great. The crypto market is growing faster than the internet. Year-on-year growth is unbelievably big. These are the things that large businesses know. You may have heard of the Greyscale Bitcoin Trust. It's the world's largest digital asset fund manager, which allows institutional investors to gain exposure to Bitcoin through shares in the trust. It currently holds around 654,000 Bitcoin. At today's current price, that would be around $22.49 billion worth of Bitcoin. The amazing thing, that's only around 3% of the total supply of Bitcoin. Just checking out the financials on the Greyscale Bitcoin Trust, it's really fascinating. Look at the market cap. The market cap of 19.16 billion in comparison to the value of Bitcoin at $22.49 billion. You could do a lot of good just going in and buying shares of this in the trust because you're getting them at a discount. It's also really interesting to see that the Greyscale Bitcoin Trust was trading since the 8th of May 2015. If we return to our example of the idea that we bought in after capitulation, which would be what we would be looking for, and bought $10,000 and just sold it 19,666, not at the top there, that probably be too hard, but somewhere around 2020, we said that that would be around 1.29 million in return. Let's see how the Greyscale Bitcoin Trust went. It's quite impressive, isn't it? Since inception, the Greyscale Bitcoin Trust returned 22,300%. What does that mean? If you manage to put $10,000 into this trust, it would mean that you would get a return of $223 million. Quite impressive, isn't it? This is really what Bitcoin is about. These kind of returns are once in a generation returns, and you are right at the start of this. To really understand Bitcoin, you need to understand the difference between linear and exponential growth. Linear growth is like this. It's a constant rate of change over time. Exponential growth starts very, very tiny, and little by little it grows and grows and grows. Exponential is a doubling per time period. There's a lot of old fables about the power of exponential growth. It is quite incredible. This chart is really interesting because that disruption that they're talking about here also occurs down here when people think that exponential growth is pretty much irrelevant. When I was a lecturer of first and second year stats, I had to explain the concept of exponential growth to my students. One of the best ways of doing that, I found, was to quote a really old fable about the inventor and the king. The inventor, who invented this game, chess, went to a king, and the king was so amazed with the invention, he said, "I'll give you any reward that you want." And the inventor of chess, knowing a thing or two about mathematics, said, "Okay, I tell you what, why don't you give me 1 grain of rice, just put 1 grain of rice on the first square and double it each square, and whatever I end up on the last square, that can be my reward." And the king said, 1 grain of rice, 2. Now the important thing to understand, this is a really old story. A grain of rice was a unit of currency back then. So it's like $1 or €1 or something of that nature. Just think about that as a unit of currency. So just put $1 on the first square, $2 on the second, and double it and double it and double it, and just give me what is ever left on the last square. Now, what happened? The king said, "No problem. Oh, I'm getting off cheap," because he thought the growth was linear. The king was thinking that, oh, it's just a constant increase. But he didn't realize that exponential growth is a completely different animal. As a chessboard has 64 squares and the grains double on each successive square, it was 18 quintillion grains of rice, which is kind of a lot of grains of rice. If you can imagine that was $1, each grain of rice was $1, that inventor would have all the money in the world. The king agreed to the concept before he knew this mathematics. The story goes that the inventor got the king's kingdom. This was a really helpful example to show my students the power of exponential growth and how it confuses most people. I think this is a really good graph to illustrate that fact. It starts off really, really, really small and then just shoots to the moon. That's exactly what Bitcoin does as well. You've probably seen a graph of Bitcoin like this, and it looks pretty scary, doesn't it? What happens is people present Bitcoin like this when they don't understand it. It's an exponential function. You have to use a log scale to show constant rates of percentage increase and growth. This is what Bitcoin actually looks like. This is what Bitcoin doesn't look like. Just think about the grain of rice. You have 1 grain of rice, and on the second square you have 2. On the third square you double that. On the fourth square you double that. It's not a linear graph. It's completely different. This bamboozles a lot of people. I'd like to show you how Bitcoin actually moves. When you see Bitcoin, this is on a 3-day time frame, Bitcoin. It is exponential by nature. Exponential means that it can move up and down very, very quickly. The up moves everybody wants. The down moves everybody is terrified by. But they're really opposite of the same coin. It's the yin and the yang. This is going back to the 2017 period. You can see how volatile Bitcoin is, but always remember the returns. Bitcoin has specifically engineered properties that make sure that it keeps going up and up and up over time. The reason I developed the KS model was to show the 3 different phases of each cycle. So there's sunlight, there's darkness and rebuilding. Sunlight and darkness and rebuilding. It's just like the seasons, but instead of 4 seasons we get 3. Sunlight, after the peak there will be darkness and there will be consolidation as well. Very important, just as an aside, if you ever see anybody compare sunshine to darkness, they're crossing psychological states. What that means is that in the sunshine everything is good. Ferraris and Porsches are being bought, retirement is planned out, people are quitting their jobs, everything is fine. When the rocket hits the moon and the moon says, mission accomplished rocket, time to go back to Earth and prepare for the next run, these prices go down very substantially until they break down completely, which is capitulation. But as you've actually seen, if you buy a capitulation and you sell above a previous peak, it may take a few years, but if you do that, you can be very well off in terms of that strategy. There are many, many more properties of Bitcoin that I would love to chat with you about, but I think this is a good size video for now. So thank you very much for watching. I do these videos to assist you to be more of a financial blessing to yourself and those you love. I hope you found the content useful. Please say hi and let me know where you're viewing from, and if you have any questions. If you would like twice daily updates 7 days a week on price movements in the crypto market, please subscribe to YouTube and follow me on Twitter. Crypto is volatile. Always prepare yourself for the best and worst case scenarios. Reality will likely be between them. Stay safe out there, take care, and see you next time. Bye for now.